Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 127 of the DrewCast. I'm your host, Mellow15. Again, this week we don't have a disembodied voice, but it's okay because I'm here, you're here, and we got some news to go over. Some pretty big news, actually. This is going to be. I tried my hardest to break this down for you guys because it's not what it seems to be. And I'm actually kind of disappointed. We're going to get into, the alien pictures that were shown during like a meeting with the Mexican lawmakers. Mexican Congress held a meeting and some pictures were shown and some bodies were actually like in real life shown on the Congress floor to the Mexico lawmakers. And at first glance, if you don't know, you might think to yourself, "Hey, is this really disclosure happening? Like they're really doing it, right?" And that's what I thought when I first saw it. I dug a little deeper. It's kind of disappointing, but nonetheless, we're gonna talk about it tonight. So yeah. So anyways, I did have some stuff planned for this week. I wanted to talk about the last episode of Ahsoka that just happened. I wanted to do maybe another, back to the past segment, but I feel like this is too big of a story to like add other stuff into it. So, but yeah, I'm reading an article right here. Mexican Congress holds hearing on UFOs featuring purported alien bodies. Now, when I say this to you, I was on Twitter last night. I was scrolling. I had stayed off social media for like the whole day yesterday because I didn't want Ahsoka spoilers. Like, because I knew the episode 5 of Ahsoka was going to be like, crazy stuff going on. So after Ahsoka, I go online and I start to see like all these reports of like alien bodies, and I see pictures of alien bodies and videos of UAPs, and all the articles are saying like the Mexican government discloses alien photos, and of course that's how they were gonna market this to you guys, right? Now, when I first saw them, of course, the pictures, and we'll put them up as we go along with this episode. Obviously, they look like ET, right? You're like, hey, ET found home because ET found that in Peru. That's what ET found. That's what they did. But you see the pictures, and you think to yourself, like, wow, this is what all the cartoons and movies kind of say aliens would look like, right? And then you start to think to yourself, were they told something, and this is kind of like their way of like slowly like showing us what these things would look like? Were they given information that maybe they weren't supposed to have? Like, what's going on here, right? So the guy, he's a quote unquote UFO expert, UFOologist. His name is Jamie Mawson. Okay, now he presented these bodies to the Mexican Congress on September 12th, 2023. The bodies that he did present to these guys, they were found in Peru, okay, and are believed to be 1,000 years old due to carbon dating. Now, I'm not an expert on carbon dating. I'm not an expert on a lot of stuff pertaining to this story, like the DNA aspect of it, the carbon dating, like mummified bodies. I'm just fascinated because if these aren't human, but they're not alien, this leads into a whole a different topic. Like, this gets into a past civilization maybe that lived here. Are they different versions of us that like died in a cataclysm? Are they just a different species that lives here? That are they the ones operating these UFOs? Because it seems like it, right? When Bob Lazar talks about these UFOs that he worked on are so small that it's kind of like they were made for a kid, he said. These seem to be what those pilots would look like when it comes to like the size of them, right? And they were found in Peru. So, like I said, the Jamie Mawson guy, the bodies he presented were found in Peru. Now, it's kind of interesting because earlier in the summer, Peru had all those, quote unquote alien attacks on the villagers. Villagers were being like harmed by quote unquote aliens. So it is kind of interesting that the bodies that this guy Jamie is presenting come from Peru, right? And is it a coincidence? I don't know, but I mean, it kind of does seem like one. So he says that they're not from a UFO crash, and they are not a product of evolution. They come from the algae. I think it's algae mines, and they're fossilized, right? They had implants in them, right? So in one of the X-rays, you could see like like something that looks like eggs in one of their stomachs. And there was some metals found inside of them, right? One of them being considered one of the rarest form of metal, right? And I'll put up a picture of what those two metals were because I'm not gonna butcher that today. We're not gonna butcher words today, and I almost did, right? But we're not gonna butcher keywords here, and I'll put up a picture of what those metals are. One of them, like I said, being, kind of one of the rarest forms of metal. The problem with this, right? Because if you're looking at it, and this is your first time hearing of Jamie Mawson, your first time hearing this story, it's fascinating. Nonetheless, it's fascinating because it happened in an official setting, right? That'd be like when the David Grush one just happened with Ryan Graves, David Grush, Commander Fravor. That'd be like this happening there, right? Kinda. You could kind of compare the two, right? So the only bad part about this is the guy who presented these. He's been known to do this before. Like his last one got debunked in 2015 and 2017, right? When he found mummified bodies of children, he tried to pass them off as aliens. They were debunked, and he got called it was a hoax. That's what they called it. They called it a hoax. So that right there, I stopped in my tracks. I was like, bro, you got to be fucking kidding me. You got to be kidding me. The guy who's already been in trouble and already debunked, this is what it's come down to, right? Which made me kind of mad. I was like, you know what, dude? I was like, this summer's been super important to disclosure, alien disclosure. And there's so many credible people, in my opinion, that have come forward who are trying to help you guys understand what this could be, trying to slowly acclimate you guys to like the fact that we're not alone. There's some real heavy topics being talked about. And stuff like this only slows down disclosure. It only gives it it truly does give disclosure like a bad look. This was not good. As people kept taking huge steps forward, this is a huge step back, right? Because this was being blasted everywhere. I mean, it's all over Instagram, all over Twitter, all over TikTok, and a lot of people who don't like to read or do research behind this, they're going to either one, believe that these are really aliens, or two, they're like, dude, those look like paper mache aliens. Like those aren't aliens, right? So and then for the people who do think it's fake, because I'll get to that in a second on what my opinion is, but for the people who think it's fake, they're going to say anything now is fake. So how do we decide what's fake and what's real going forward, right? Like if they really do show us real alien bodies, it's fake like those Mexican ones. It's fake like the ones they showed in Mexico. And that's probably what's going to start happening, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this one guy was able to potentially harm disclosure to the point where it muddies the waters. There's a term they use, it's called muddying the water. And that's what this did. This muddied the waters. And it's something that I'm not a big fan of. This is not something that I'm a fan of. Right? And I'll continue with what Jamie Mawson was saying during this hearing. So he told Congress that DNA samples from two of the corpses were tested and compared to other DNA samples. And it was found that over 30% of the DNA specimen was unknown. Further x-rays of the corpses were also displayed, which showed eggs present inside one of the bodies alongside rare metals that I was telling you guys about, right? Now, I'm not an expert on DNA. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not an expert on carbon dating. But according to these guys, they were willing to let other people have access to the data, right? To the DNA data that they took, right? They're willing to let other people look at it, test it. That's kind of what I was gathering from what they were saying. Like they're willing to let other people look at it and have access to it. They did MRIs, they did X-rays. So again, if this is something that I'm going to go back to this part because it said that it found that over 30% of the specimen had unknown DNA. I said something like this in the beginning, but it could very, very well be that what we're seeing right here with this whole, if it is real, you could be looking at something that was here before we were. Now, does that mean we're alone? I mean, of course we think we're not alone in the universe, right? But are we alone on this planet? I mean, that's a question that a lot of people just overlook when it comes to disclosure, right? The biggest question is, are we alone in the universe? A lot of people don't think we are. There's a small group of people who probably think we are because based on the evidence, where's the evidence, right? Which is, again, evidence is key. But something that we often overlook is inside our own oceans, right? Inside our cave systems, inside volcanoes, where because there's UAPs and UFOs that are seen coming in and out of volcanoes. Are we alone here, right? And I think if this is real and it ends up not being a hoax, this kind of this kind of leads me to believe that we're looking at something from a past civilization that either used to be here before we were. Maybe they escaped a cataclysm, came back, and they couldn't really reveal themselves to us. It could be a whole array of things. It kind of saddened me though, because like this topic is so important to me, right? You guys know we talk about this a lot this summer. And this guy potentially like super, super, super muddied the waters. And it's unfortunate because it'll get a lot of people who were already on the fence about this. They're gonna be like, well, you know what? Remember like the Mexican hearing in Mexico, the Mexico hearing where like the guy showed Mexican lawmakers and Congress people those fake alien bodies. Well, this isn't real either. They're gonna call it a psyop. It could because it could easily be that, right? Maybe what David Grush was saying was so true that the counter attack is let's let the Mexican government release this. Clearly it's fake. Clearly it's done by a guy who's been debunked before. The world will look at it. It'll go super viral and they'll be like, yeah, that's fake. Like, why are you guys showing us fake bodies? Right. And it'll just start to get people to distrust governments even more, government figureheads even more. And it'll get people to, yeah, but I don't care about disclosure anymore. What about my rent? Why is my rent not lower? Why are my bills not lower? Right. And you're going to get a lot of people because of this who won't listen to the actual legit people. They'll be like, well, because of this, I don't even care what you have to say. Right? You could easily see that happening. And I wanted to read a tweet, guys, because Ryan Graves was there. And he's somebody that, in my opinion, when it comes to the UFO phenomenon, Ryan Graves is somebody that should be looked at with the utmost respect, right? I don't believe he's lying. I don't believe the people that have talked to him about their stories are lying. And I believe he has a good heart. I believe he's somebody that moves with respect. He moves with good dignity, basically, right? He was at this hearing because they invited him and he accepted their invitation. And a lot of people are like, wait, why was Ryan there if like fake bodies were being shown, right? Like, why would Ryan be there? Like, that's not a good look, right? Well, he tweeted something this morning, kind of separating himself from this, right? And I'm going to read that tweet right here because it's kind of important that someone of his stature said this. So the tweet goes, after the U.S. congressional UFO hearing, I accepted an invitation to testify before the Mexican Congress, hoping to keep up the momentum of government interest in pilot experiences with UAPs. Unfortunately, yesterday's demonstration was a huge step backwards for this issue. My testimony centered on sharing my experiences and the UAP reports I hear from commercial and military aircrew through ASA's Witness program. I will continue to raise awareness of UAPs as an urgent matter of aerospace safety, national security, and science, but I am deeply disappointed by this unsubstantiated stunt. That was kind of, what do you call it? That was kind of damning that Ryan said that. To be honest with you, like I said, if he wouldn't have made that tweet, if he would have would have said, "Hey, I saw the bodies, I saw the research, I'm going all in." It's kind of damning, bro. And after he said that, I'm starting to think that those aren't aliens. Now, could they be? They could, and I could be wrong. Like I said, since the start of this episode, I'm not an expert. I have no idea about carbon dating or DNA sampling or how to look at DNA through the lens of like the specific tools that you need for science, right? I'm looking at it with my own eyes, and the simple fact that the Jamie Mawson guy has been known to for like fake stunts like this in the past, that's a huge red flag. It's a huge red flag. And not only does this muddy the waters on disclosure, but it literally takes the movement back a large number of steps. For all the people who are being honest about it and trying to give you guys the correct information, this takes us back so many steps. It's actually really heartbreaking in a way because there's people who have died for this information. It's been alluded to by David Grush. People have died for this information. They're losing their lives, and people like Jamie Mawson over here taking mummified children and saying, they're aliens. He shows us these. Now, when you look at the picture, and we could put the pictures up here too, the aliens had 3 fingers, right? And they looked like E.T. a little bit, right? Like everybody had memes going on. Of course, the memes were going to come. They always do. That's just how we are now. It looks paper mache-ish, right? It looks like paper mache. And like I said, you would think that an alien would not be recognizable to us, right? You would think that if it came from another part of the galaxy or the universe, that they would look different, that they wouldn't be able to like look like something we've seen in a movie. On the flip side, since we've never seen an actual alien, what if they do look similar to us? What if they do have similar looks and characteristics? They just evolve differently. So there's always those 2 options that's what it could be. And the part that kind of like, okay, so it came from a guy who has been debunked before and they call him a hoaxer. But the fact that they took DNA samples, they had the data, and they were willing to let other people look at it, I was kind of like, okay, well, if it's fake, why are they letting other people get the chance to like debunk them even more? Maybe for publicity, maybe for like, like UFO clout, but I don't know. Like I said, seeing it for the first time yesterday, I was excited. I was like, oh, damn, like here we go, right? This is it. Because I always thought that this is what it would take, that America's not going to be the one to do it, right? Like there's too much at stake here for them, like with national security, other countries getting a hold of that technology, other countries possibly finding out that they have it, speeding the process with their country. So I already kind of figured America wasn't going to be the one that discloses this. I kind of figured that another country would, but I didn't think it'd be Mexico. So I'm half Mexican. When I see this, I was proud for a minute, right? I was proud, and I was like, hey, I was like, hey, fool, we discovered aliens, fool. Like, obviously I was doing the, the gimmicks and the dances. Then after a little bit of reading and a little bit of digging, I was kind of disappointed, man. I don't want to be. I'm not 100% sure that these are fake, but I'm gonna say they're fake. I actually think they're fake. I don't think they're real aliens. What I think they could be, like I said earlier, if they're possibly real, if these are real, I think they're just. It's kind of what we need to start talking about, anyways. But past civilizations that have been on this earth for longer than what we know of, I think that's a huge possibility. I think the time that we know of and we think of and we write down is way longer than what we have recorded. I think past civilizations have lived here. I think past civilizations have got to the point where they're able to make better technology than us. And I think what's happening is those same tech, like something happened to them. Either they had to leave Earth because of a cataclysm. Maybe there was an event that happened throughout the universe that we don't know about that made them leave. They come back, they're like, oh, other species have popped up. We can't just integrate ourselves with them. We gotta Let's just watch them and see what they do. And maybe we can live in the oceans, or maybe we can live in the caves. And I kind of think that's probably what happened, right? You just had a civilization that was able to leave this planet, right? So they became technologically advanced enough to leave. They came back and they looked way, way different from you and me, right? They look way, 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 way different from you and me. Now the question is, what do you guys think, right? What do you guys think of these pictures? What do you think of the X-rays, the statements by the guy Jamie Mawson? Do you think this muddies the water? Do you think this kind of takes the disclosure movement a couple steps back? I surely think it does, right? And it kind of sucks because it kind of seems nefarious, bro. It kind of seems like there's a group of people who are trying to stop this at all cost, and they don't want the real information getting out there. So they're going to let a bunch of fake stories run wild, like the Peru stuff, right? The Peru aliens and the girl, this motherfucker is not real, and this story, the pictures of these supposed aliens, right? They're going to let all the crazy stories run wild. But the one that didn't really run wild was the David Grush one, right? When David Grush did the News Nation interview, it did get traction, but not like this, bro. And you can tell, I think you could start to, if you really look, you can start noticing the fake stories getting crazy amount of views and clout, and the fake stories don't really get touched because people are scared. People are scared to touch those stories, right? They don't want to be looked at as cuckoo, and the stigma is still so high right now. We were working on it, right? The stigma was getting better, right? People were starting to kind of finally accept that maybe we're not alone, and maybe we're not alone on this planet, right? People were starting to accept that. But with stuff like this, it just makes the stigma go back up. It makes the stigma that much worse, and it sucks, right? It sucks that this is what it came down to. But I still think that we have a good shot at getting people prepared for this. I still think that real disclosure is going to come. There's no way they can stop it from that happening. And I hope this point going forward, there is nothing like this anymore. Like, there is no more stunts like this. I hope deep down that the people who did this, they know I hope they know the damage they did, right? If this ends up being fake, if it's real, then again, I don't think it's actually aliens. There was some footage shown too at this hearing of what they believe to be UFOs in the sky. And because of the fact that this guy named Jamie Mawson was even allowed to present there, if that really is a real video of a UFO, how are we supposed to take that serious? It could be fake. It could just be for maybe Mexico, maybe certain Mexican lawmakers and Congress people were trying to just get themselves on the news because it's a hot topic right now. I mean, that's a very big possibility. Maybe we're dealing with a country that really doesn't know what they're dealing with. And so maybe any type of stuff like that in the news can just be presented that way. So, but yeah, that is tonight's episode, guys. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of the pictures? What do you think of everything going on, surrounding disclosure? And yeah, for the people who were watching on, for the people who were listening on Spotify and Apple Podcast, I am going to have a lot of pictures, I believe, this episode. So, obviously you can't see those in audio form. Come to the YouTube channel, take a look at what we got. You probably already seen the pictures if you're listening, but if you haven't, like I said, come to the YouTube channel. I got you guys. Yeah. And until next time, guys, peace.